Hi everybody and welcome to today's video. My name is Matt and this is What Matters to Matt, and on today's video we are going to be talking about the Brooks Ghost 15. Alright, so this was one of the hardest shoe purchases that I had to make, but to give you a little bit of a background, I am trying to fill a hole in my shoe rotation. Now my wife would say that I have a lot of shoes. You never have enough shoes, but I do have a hole that I had to fill, and recently I did another video where I was talking about the Saucony Ride 15 that got me through a lot of kilometers, a little bit over 500 so far. And I did say that going into the winter months, I'm here in Eastern Canada, that the tread was worn out enough that I didn't really think that that was going to stand up to the ice and the snow and all that bad weather. And it was already a firm midsole to begin with, and the cold weather really seemed to firm up the midsole on the Ride 15. So I had this daily trainer spot to fill into my shoe rotation. Now, it was difficult to make this purchase because there is nothing, I'm going to be honest with you, nothing overly exciting about the Brooks Ghost 15, and we'll get into that. And to give you a little bit of an idea, when I actually went in to make a new purchase for a daily trainer, what I actually went in and bought was the Hoka Mach 5. Now, obviously a way different shoe in every aspect between the Hoka Mach 5 and the Brooks Ghost 15. And I think what it comes down to when I return that shoe, I knew it, but it's exciting when you get an exciting shoe in your hand at the store. I think what it comes down to are wants versus needs, given where I'm at, given what I needed in my rotation. And we're going to talk about that today, and we're going to talk about whether I feel after getting a few runs in the Brooks Ghost 15, whether that actually fills that hole. So before we get into what I thought about this shoe, let's go over just some of the specs so you have an idea of exactly what you're looking at in the Brooks Ghost 15. The Brooks Ghost 15 specs, there is a drop of 12 millimeters, that's 35 millimeters in the heel, and 23 millimeters in the forefoot. The weight of the shoe is 10.1 ounces, or 286.3 grams in a men's size 9. The midsole is Brooks DNA Loft version 2. The outsole is made up of a blown rubber, and the upper is made up of an engineered mesh. Now that we've got those specs out of the way, we can go down through the shoe like I do in a lot of my other reviews. I'm going to be doing this just a little bit different because I do think it's important to compare wants versus needs, because as I mentioned, this was a hard decision to make because every time I walk into the shoe store, I'm looking for something fun. I'm looking for something exciting. I'm not always paying attention to exactly what I need. So we'll go through the upper, the midsole, and ultimately the outsole, and then I'm going to tell you whether I think the Brooks Ghost 15 was worth my hard-earned cash. Now, let's get on to the upper of this shoe. And if I talk about this shoe in terms of my wants versus needs, normally when I go into a shoe store and I'm talking about what my wants are, I'm looking for something that's very breathable, very light, just enough padding around that heel collar and in the tongue so that it's comfortable, but not too much where it's going to feel too warm and not too much where it's going to get too heavy. I do have a larger foot, so shoe weight is really important to me. But if we talk about what my needs are as we roll into the winter months, breathability is not really an issue for me. I'm going to be logging a lot of miles in my daily trainer over the course of the winter months. So I actually kind of want something that's going to be a little bit warmer. So I'm willing to sacrifice just a little bit of that weight. And if you've ever run in a Brooks Ghost before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Even though this is an engineered mesh upper, it's still not incredibly breathable. One of the things about the Brooks is the step-in feel and the step-in comfort. I think most folks, if they go into the store and they ignored everything else, they ignored that it was a 12 millimeter drop, they ignored that there was a ton of rubber on the bottom of the shoe, and they just went by step-in feel. This, in a lot of cases, some people won't have the same feeling in it, but the Brooks Ghost line is one of the more comfortable step-in shoes, for me at least. That is what I need. As I'm in Atlantic Canada, I'm not worried about any breathability over the winter months, and that also includes I'm willing to have a little bit more plushness back here around the heel collar and in the tongue to actually keep my foot a little bit warm and still have a daily trainer. Not something that's necessarily Gore-Tex, something that's still breathable, that's going to carry me into the spring when it does get a little bit warmer, but something that's going to keep my foot relatively warm and not have the wind just blowing right through it. Now, I would say that this upper fits very comfortably, and I would say that the lockdown in this was true to size, and it locked into my foot really well. I didn't feel any heel slippage at all. Again, I think some of that is that Brooks is taking advantage of the fact that they do have quite a bit of padding around here in the heel, and it is a very, very stout heel back here. You really, when I push on that, I can barely move that at all. So really, really stable shoe, just a comfortable ride. Now let's move on to talking about that midsole. Next, again, we get to talk about where all that magic happens, and that is in the midsole of any running shoe out there these days. And there are a couple of things that I want to bring up. First one is in that drop. Now, Brooks goes with a 12 millimeter drop in their Ghost line. They've been doing that for years, maybe since the first Brooks Ghost. But 12 millimeter drop does seem fairly high, or sound fairly high. Now, I do have to point out that I don't know why I always try to point because it's so hard, but back there on the wall somewhere I do have the Saucony Triumph 20 that I use for my recovery days, easy days, long runs. And that shoe does have a 10 millimeter drop, so we're really only talking about 2 extra millimeters in the heel of this shoe. And to be honest with you, so I don't notice a huge difference there. The other reason why I was curious about running in a 12 millimeter drop shoe is that for the last couple of months, I've been having just a little bit, I don't know why I'm touching it now because there's no way you can see this, but I've been having a little bit of pain in my Achilles tendon. And one of the theories is that the higher the drop of the shoe, the less pressure there is on the Achilles tendons. The lower the drop, the more you're stretching out that Achilles. Now that does mean that I will be putting a little bit extra pressure on my knees. That's in theory. Ultimately, it kind of depends on the types of surfaces that you're running on. If you're spending all day running up hills, no amount of heel drop is really going to help your Achilles. But in theory, it's supposed to help 12 millimeter drops. We're going to try that out. The other thing that I want to mention was that the Brooks Ghost 15 does have that DNA Loft version 2. Now, I'm not entirely sure why they went with this. I think they're just trying to differentiate the two shoes. But earlier this year, Brooks put out their Glycerin 20, and in the Glycerin 20, I think it's a DNA Loft version 3. I'll put it up here on the screen. But if you run in that shoe, you will notice that there is a lot more energy return in the Glycerin 20, which seems a little bit backwards because this is the daily trainer that presumably some people are going to want to do a lot more up-tempo stuff in if they have to. They're going to buy it as a one shoe to do it all sort of thing. And the Glycerin 20 is more of an easy day, long run, recovery day shoe. But that's what they did. Now, I will say that that's fine with me because, again, as I'm looking at my wants versus needs, I really like to have a lot of stability in that midsole, especially through the winter months, because the sidewalks here just get pretty treacherous and they're a little bit all over the place. So having a midsole that is quite stable, I'll allow for a little bit of extra firmness. That's perfectly fine with me. Let's move on to talking about the outsole of the Brooks Ghost 15. Lastly, let's talk about the outsole of this shoe, and Brooks has put a ton of blown rubber on the bottom of this shoe, certainly more than any other running shoe that I've purchased over the last couple of years, short of being an all-out trail shoe, but definitely more than the purchase that I first made in the Hoka Mach 5 that I ultimately returned, because in the Mach 5, there's actually no rubber on the bottom of that shoe. And if we talk about wants versus needs, the wants and what excited me about the Mach 5 is without that rubber, that did mean that that shoe was going to be quite a bit lighter. They save a lot of weight just in the outsole of that shoe. And also there's something magical about having just less rubber, and even some of the rubberized EVA or midsole actually hitting the ground just makes for a different experience than running on so much rubber. But when it does come down to what I'm going to be running over the next number of months and what I'm trying to get out of this shoe, I'm trying to get a lot of miles out of this shoe, and I feel like with all that blown rubber, certainly I'm going to be able to go the distance in the Ghost 15. They have included this crash pad here in the back that I think is going to cater to a lot of runners if you are a heel striker, and a lot of us are, so that should wear fairly well. And also just the fact that I'm running here in Eastern Canada with all the ice and the snow and the junk and the garbage, one of the reasons why I felt like I was going to have to replace the Ride 15 back there on the wall was that outsole had kind of worn away. Still probably good for the spring and summer running, but certainly not enough rubber on the bottom of that shoe to get me the traction that I want, that I need through those winter months. So ultimately, do I feel like the Brooks Ghost 15 is worth my hard-earned cash? I'm going to say yes, but over the next couple of months, it will be really telling because, again, this is not the normal purchase for me. Normally I'm looking to purchase a shoe that's a little bit more exciting, but ultimately when I went into the store and I looked at what I actually needed versus what I wanted, this was the shoe that we ended up with. That's it, guys. My name is Matt, and this is What Matters to Matt. If you've hung around for the end of the video, please hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please hit that subscribe button and leave a comment in the comment section down below. What kind of daily trainer are you actually running in through those winter months? Thank you for watching. My name is Matt, and this is What Matters to Matt, and ultimately, what matters to me most is my family. I'll see you guys in the next video.
Step 1, wake up early, gonna rise with the sun. Step 2, get some food in you. Step 3, think real hard about what you wanna be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be